Hello everybody, my name's Richard Box and I'm an artist and I work in drawings and paintings, oils, watercolours, and I also am a textile artist. I work with fabric collage and with machine and hand embroidery. Here are some examples of my work. This is a watercolour painting, and from there you will see I've translated it into a stitch picture, which is done purely on the machine, and that's what I would like to talk to you about later on. The next piece of work I'd like to show you is this one here, which is applique work, where pieces of fabric is cut out and applied onto a surface and then stitched. Now this is a drawing I did from life with coloured pencils, and this is a finished picture drawn with threads on the sewing machine, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Here I am at the sewing machine, and we're going to talk about what you need to do before you start. Any sewing machine will do, as long as it does a straight stitch, and all machines do a straight stitch. You will need to have normal tension. You need to have the same colour that you use in the top as you use in the bottom. Now I'd like to explain that to you now by showing you this. If you see this is what how I started, and then you look at the back, you will see that the colours are the same behind as they are on top. Now the reason for that is, and I'll show you again, if you're going to use what some people call tricky, difficult threads, if you have a key on the back showing you what you need to do on the front, you can then work your difficult threads in the bobbin and work upside down. And that is such a useful tip that was given to me about 25 years ago. I can't possibly not tell you about it. It's a good idea to put your fabric in a frame. Now many people use a hoop, but I find that these frames here are really good, because if you see the example here, it's tacked with staples with a gun, and as you stitch you will find the fabric gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and that's what you really need, a good tension on the fabric, and then your threads won't break, the needles won't break, and much better than a hoop where you always find some slack. What we're going to do now is to show you how to start. We have stapled the fabric into the frame, and I have threaded the machine with the thread blue above, blue in the bobbin. I'm going to bring the thread up through the material before I start stitching. It's important to do that just in case the bottom thread gets caught down into the race. You can go fast, you can go slow. The faster the go, the shorter the stitch. The slower you go, the longer the stitch. So watch how I do it. So here I'm going quite slowly, so the stitch is long, but if I should speed up and move the frame slower, the stitch is short. It's not a question of better or worse, it's a question of different style, different technique, depending on what effect one wants. Now some of you may be thinking, how on earth did I get the design onto the fabric? Well, I had already drawn it first with my coloured pencils, and I will just draw it again to show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so I'm redrawing some of the lines that are already there. You probably can't see them because I've covered them up with stitching, but this is how I did it to start with my coloured pencils. So although this is blue, blue is a component of green, and so yellow with the blue tells me that these are the green areas which represent the stalks and the stems. Yellow could go into the center. I'll use this greenish yellow for that part at the top, which is catching the light, and I'll use an orangish yellow, cadmium yellow, for the bottom, which is in shadow. So you will see later that there will be two different yellows representing the center of the daisies. If you feel uncomfortable or terrified of drawing, you can use carbon paper and impress the design onto the fabric that way. Next, I'm going to show you another stage, which is working the picture upside down using the so-called difficult threads in the bobbin. This is what I call a so-called difficult thread. It is difficult because sometimes it breaks very easily in the top, and therefore we're going to wind this into the bobbin and then turn the picture upside down using a stable thread, a tough thread that doesn't break easily on the top. As you see, I have got the frame upside down now, and the tension is just about slack enough for me to keep the fabric on the bed of the machine. That's very important because otherwise you would break threads. You'll see that I've got a stable thread of tough polyester cotton at the top, and at the bottom I've got the so-called difficult unstable thread, and it's pulled through as before. I'm going to stitch at the lower part of the daisy's centre, and I'm also going to take the gold through the green area because gold is yellow and yellow is a component of green, and by repetition it will link the whole design together. As you can see, I have the fabric now upside down, and I'm pressing down with my fingers fairly close to the darning foot and move the frame gently through the stems as well as into the center of the daisy. Now, as you can see, I'm moving the thread in between the petals rather than through the petals. Petals have to be done in another colour. And I'll take this thread through the whole of the picture in this manner. Right, well, you can see that this project will take a little time, but not much more than a day, and I don't think you need to see me stitching anymore. You've seen the technique. There is one thing I do need to mention, and that you probably noticed I have this darning foot on. Now, it is possible that you could work with a bare needle, that is no foot at all, but don't forget, if you do that, to put the tension bar down, because if you don't do that, you'll get a wonderful kind of knotted bird's nest underneath. I do like the darning foot. It acts as a protection from my fingers, for one thing, and also it does hold the fabric steadier, so I would recommend you use the darning foot. Now you can see at this stage that a number of colours have been taken through. I'd like to give you some help about colour mixing. I could have used grey for the shadow of the white of daisies, but here I've used a pale red, a pink, with a pale blue. You could have used grey as the shadow of white, but to mix, say, a pale pink, like an orange pink, salmon pink, with a turquoise blue, you can make a grey that sparkles and scintillates. It's rather like tumble dryer fluff or Boxing Day plasticine, where you have all the colours mixed together and they create grey. It's just more exciting that way. And here is the finished piece. And although I could have shown you more, we haven't much time, but you can come and see me at all the knitting and stitching shows, either at the NEC or at Alexandra Palace or in Dublin or in Harrogate. And as you notice, I've shown you my books as Drawing for the Terrified DVD, and I hope you really enjoy the process. Don't be afraid, have a go, and if you do break needles, it's not the end of the world.